An important safety tool left on the shelf.
Do you believe that LPRs could help make this community safer?
Absolutely.
How the murder of a Nashville woman is reigniting the LPR debate.
Pointing fingers in Nashville's homeless crisis, why Metro leaders and a nonprofit are calling each other out when it comes to housing those in need.
The gangs of Nashville after a deadly mass shooting. Fox 17 News digs into how big the problem really is. Fox 17 News at 9 starts now.
Middle Tennessee's only primetime news. This is Fox 17 News at 9, your Code Red station.
New tonight, a run to remember, a life cut short. About a dozen runners gathered in Hendersonville, pausing for a minute of silence before their run in honor of Alyssa Lokitz. Metro police say a man murdered Lokitz while she was exercising at an Antioch Greenway.
LPRs make us safer.
Now, the murder of Alyssa Lokitz is leading to more calls tonight for Nashville Mayor Freddie O'Connell to roll out license plate readers that have already been approved by the Metro Council. Metro's police chief says that tool alone would have made catching the suspect in this Greenway murder case a lot easier.
Well, instead, officers got lucky when a person at the park let them know about footage from a private dash cam.
Fox 17 News' Karen Aguilar is live tonight at the North Nashville Police Precinct with the renewed calls for action.
Metro Police arrested their suspect less than 24 hours of the murder, but they say the city is not using every tool available to them to keep Nashville safe. 2 days after Metro Police say Paul Park killed Alyssa Lokitz while working out on Mill Creek Greenway, fear grips the neighborhood.
It was really scary.
Adding to the fear, police say Park killed Lokitz in broad daylight and the two didn't know each other. Kimberly Payne uses the Greenway to bike, and she says she only feels comfortable to continue because police caught their suspect.
Definitely way more cautious.
Tuesday in a news conference, Police Chief John Drake says dashcam video captured Park at the Greenway in part of his BMW, which is why Chief Drake stresses the importance of LPRs, which his department has been pushing for.
This would have given us information that would have been a lot more timely.
Do you believe that LPRs could help make this community safer?
Absolutely.
MNPD rolled out a 6-month pilot program of LPRs, which led to 112 arrests and the recovery of stolen cars, guns, and other property. Councilmember John Rutherford represents Antioch and sponsored the LPR legislation. He says the holdup is hurting the community.
It's really frustrating to me that it's taking so long for us to get there.
Mayor Freddie O'Connell delayed a full rollout over privacy issues.
LPRs are another. We expect in the next few months we'll get to kind of our final updates to policy and then hopefully move to a great smart and privacy protecting implementation.
But Rutherford says there is already a policy in place, so there is no reason to wait.
The police department has laid out a plan for how they will be implemented. It's a fair and equitable plan.
The mayor's team would not respond to our request for clarification on the language of the LPR policy. Reporting live in Nashville, Karen Aguilar, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Well, we want to know what you think about this. Should Nashville roll out their full license plate reader program without any further delay? We've got nearly 400 people weighing in, but as you see, people are fairly divided on this. 56.6% say yes, 43.4% say no. We'd love to know what you think, to let us know. Scan the QR code on the right-hand side of the screen. It will link you to our X poll where you can vote, and we will update the results for you on Fox 17 News at 10. Now, Fox 17 News has been covering the LPR issue in Nashville for well over a year. You can see our previous coverage on the Fox Nashville YouTube channel, and while you're there, be sure to subscribe.
Listening to this, I'm kind of alarmed.
In the high cost of homelessness, Metro Council members are outraged after they say there's a lot of confusion when it comes to a partnership to help the homeless. It surrounds $2 million Metro gave the Salvation Army. Fox 17 News uncovered that Metro and the Salvation Army are on two different pages with this agreement. Fox 17 News' Caitlin Miller joining us live from the Metro Courthouse after looking into this. Caitlin?
Yes, Megan. Well, this confusion stems from a lot bigger issue here, which is where are we housing these homeless people and how are our tax dollars being used? Now, we spoke with Salvation Army today, and they say in Metro's meeting this week that there was confusion over two different contracts. One that addresses short-term housing, but another that addresses different type of housing services.
How to best handle Metro's homeless crisis, leading to tense moments in a Metro Council meeting this week.
Listening to this, I'm kind of alarmed that we gave the Salvation Army $2 million to cover gap housing. But now the Salvation Army is refusing to use that money for that purpose. Is that a correct understanding?
That's the way I understand it, yes.
Allison Cantway with Metro's Office of Homeless Services is blaming the Salvation Army for not using $2 million the city gave them for short-term housing.
I'd almost say no more money for Salvation Army.
The Salvation Army is currently using the Roadway Inn in South Nashville to house people from closing camps. Fox 17 News went to the Salvation Army for answers. The agency says there is a misunderstanding on Metro's part, saying they're confusing two contracts.
It was the capacity building grant that was being talked about at the council meeting. What was not being talked about was a grant renewal for the gap housing, which we were never received any information from OHS about funding to continue the gap housing.
Major Bill Mockabee explains the capacity building grant is for other housing services, and Metro just approved that funding in June. He says the Salvation Army used all of Metro's money for the gap housing at the Roadway Inn and says this contract is up at the end of the month. Now Metro Council members are frustrated for another reason.
I'm hearing some conflicting stories about which contract is in question and what's actually going on and what the problem is or isn't.
They should know these things. They should have clear numbers.
Metro's Office of Homeless Services is blaming the Salvation Army for the confusion with recent leadership turnover. Their department believes the grant that was recently approved is supposed to continue the Roadway Inn services.
You can see that there's a lot of pointing fingers here, but Metro Council members say that they're committed to addressing the homeless crisis here in Nashville, and they're also committed to getting to the bottom of all this confusion. Reporting live from downtown, I'm Caitlin Miller, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
You don't want to do this to your family. You don't want them to have to bury you. Think before you react.
In Operation Crime and Justice, Metro Police tell Fox 17 News gangs are behind Saturday's mass shooting on Jefferson Street. Tonight, Fox 17 News digging into just how bad the gang problem in Metro is. Fox 17 News' Kylie Walker shows us what community members are saying tonight.
I spent my day speaking with people from all different backgrounds, including a mother who tragically lost her son to gang violence, as well as a Metro police officer who has seen these problems firsthand. Now, through these conversations, I have learned that this is a very complex issue and not an easy fix.
I don't want any more mothers to keep having to come out here to see their child.
For the last 10 years, Stacey Hall with Mothers Over Murder has had to visit her son at a gravesite in South Nashville.
This is the only way that I can see him.
Hall says she didn't know her son was in a gang until it was too late.
My son was a part of a gang, and they took him to Sumner County and killed him and left him for dead.
Urging parents to be more hands-on, Hall also wants to see more reform to life after lockup.
A lot of them are being put out in the streets and still have that prison mentality. You know, they are still locked up, but they're out, but they're still locked up. They talking and thinking like as if they was incarcerated. So what are you doing to reform them?
Hall suggests more educational programs in schools or initiatives to help people reintegrate into society.
98% of incarcerated people are coming out. So how do I want them back out on our streets?
Valerie Craig with Tennessee Voices for Victims works with incarcerated men and women each week to address the root cause of violence in our communities.
We have to intervene. We have to intervene for these kids and provide them safety, and we just are not doing that well as a society or as a system.
We asked Metro Police about the most prevalent gangs in Nashville, and while they did not provide this, retired MMPD officer Ken Alexandro says things have changed over the years.
The gangs that were most prevalent were national chapter gangs like MS-13, the Bloods and the Crips.
Alexandro says groups are now getting more localized.
Youth are getting together in a neighborhood and they're naming themselves whatever they want to, and they're concentrated in that neighborhood.
Alexandro believes that addressing this issue really takes a multifaceted approach that does include more positive role models within the community, including male figures. He also believes that there needs to be more aggressive enforcement and more consequences. And while everyone may disagree on how we tackle these issues, everyone can agree that the problem needs to be fixed. For now, reporting in North Nashville, Kylie Walker, Fox 17 News, your Code Red Station.
Just and a local grandmother's call to action leads to criminal charges. The accusations against the people the state was paying to care for her grandchildren.
And not forgotten, the Mid-State Help headed east to those still recovering from Helene.
An update now to Fox 17 News investigation about a local grandmother's battle to get custody of her grandchildren. As we first reported to you nearly a year ago, this grandmother feared for the children's safety.
Well, months after our story, police charged the children's former caregivers with abuse and neglect. Fox 17 News' Amanda Chen spoke with the two caregivers for the first time after a court hearing.
This grandmother hasn't been able to see or talk to her grandchildren for nearly a year. It's a fight Elizabeth Buchanan tells me she's not ready to give up just yet.
For years, Elizabeth Buchanan believed her grandchildren had been subject to nutritional neglect and physical abuse.
It still affects me. I don't think it's a day that goes by just to reflect back on everything that happened that I shed tears.
After Buchanan tried telling the judge in the Department of Children's Services about her concerns regarding the caregivers, police charged Rose and Barshay Inman with 2 counts each of child abuse and child neglect in August. While the caregivers would not speak with me on camera, I was able to talk with them outside the courtroom after their scheduled appearances did not occur. The Inmans deny any abuse or neglect. When I pressed them about medical records Fox 17 News received from the grandmother showing the children's stomachs being distended, the Inmans say they fed the children. The Inmans also tell me the children tended to overeat and took them to the doctor when needed. I also asked about what evidence they believe investigators have to file these charges. The caregivers tell me this is all a surprise to them and have no idea why they are being charged. Meanwhile, Buchanan continues to fight for custody of her grandchildren with help from Cheryl Huff, the president of the civil rights group National Action Network of Middle Tennessee.
Because we would not give up. Yeah. The attorney, the judge, everybody wanted Miss Buchanan to let the case go and give it up, and she would refuse.
Buchanan tells me the children are now staying in foster homes. The Inmans are scheduled to be back in court on December 12th. The grandmother's trial to try and get custody of her grandchildren will start in the new year. Reporting in the studio, I'm Amanda Chen, Fox 17 News, your Code Red Station.
In Operation Crime and Justice, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation tonight looking into a deputy-involved shooting in Rutherford County. It happened early this morning on Interstate 24 when a deputy shot and killed a man during a traffic stop. The TBI says 71-year-old Robert Mitchell Wemmer refused to follow the deputy's commands and pulled out a gun and fired at least one shot at the deputy. No officers were hurt.
New tonight, some sad news to report in the world of entertainment. Singer Liam Payne has died. Police say the 31-year-old former member of One Direction fell to his death from the 3rd floor of a hotel in Argentina.
Continuing coverage now on the deadly flooding over in East Tennessee as the Davidson County Sheriff's Office has deputies sending a truckload of supplies to help the folks there. Today, deputies loaded up more than 20 pallets of bottled water, flashlights, batteries, and other essentials. It's all headed to the Anderson County Sheriff's Office in Clinton.
Fox 17 News partnering with the Salvation Army and our parent company, Sinclair Inc., to assist with Hurricane Helene relief efforts. You can scan the QR code on your screen to make a contribution. And so far, viewers like you have already donated. Sinclair will be donating an additional $50,000, and a telethon by our sister station WJAR also brought in another $159,000, bringing a grand total now to $540,000. Thank you so much.
Well, we'll start off with the cold weather. That is definitely the big story for tonight. Another frost likely area-wide. In fact, some areas could see a light freeze, and that is everyone highlighted in purple. That's going to be where we have temperatures closer, if not just below the freezing mark as we head through the overnight tonight. So looking at temperatures right around freezing for those in Cookeville, Clarksville, Nashville, I believe will be in the upper 30s. So still possible to see some of that patchy frost around. But I'd say the farther you are outside of the city centers, you'll have a better chance of seeing that frost with temperatures dropping into the mid-30s. And yes, we can see frost even with mid-30s around. The bus stop tomorrow morning is going to be cold. We'll see temperatures in the upper 30s. Patchy fog will be possible for us as well. And then as we get into the mid to late morning, we'll start to see that fog clear. The sunshine will be out. Pretty frosty morning for us. We'll look for a slow warming trend over the next couple of days. It was chilly today. It'll feel cool for tomorrow afternoon, but our steady warming trend will be the story. All the while wondering, where is the rain? The dry pattern continues. Temperatures at 10 o'clock right around 51 up to about 63 with sunshine. Should top off in the mid to upper 60s for tomorrow afternoon. So why has it been so cold? We have this big trough that's digging in here across a lot of the eastern portions of the U.S. and it's all of this cool air that's being pulled in through Canada and the Great Lakes region. This will begin to exit as we head through the overnight tonight and will be replaced with what we call a ridge of high pressure that'll build in. This will keep skies clear. It's going to keep the rain away. It is also going to warm us up as we head towards the end of the week. So you can see those temperatures climbing into the upper 70s, close to 80 heading into early next week, all the while the average line hanging out in those mid-70s. So high pressure in control that keeps skies mainly clear through tomorrow, and as we head into Friday evening, all of our rain chances stay to the west. That's where more of the active weather looks to be, especially out in the mountains. So we will stay dry as we head through the weekend and into the beginning of next week. 17 days now that we have not seen any rain at the airport. Nowhere near our longest streak on record, which is 36, but we are looking at the potential for another 7, maybe 10 days without rain. We'll talk more about how that's affecting our area's soils, and we'll talk more about the tropics, what's going on out in the Atlantic. It's in your Fox 17 Code Red forecast.
Across the country, voters are casting ballots early. I'm Atrell Nashar with why some states are still working out election rules in court.
Well, as early voting gets underway nationwide, there are renewed concerns about election integrity. Fox 17 News' Atra El-Nashar has more on that. And you can let us know what you think about this issue, election integrity, by scanning the QR code that will appear on your screen.
Early voting in Georgia kicked off Tuesday. Turnout is already so massive, one top election official says they're out of adjectives to describe it.
We are blowing doors on turnout right now.
By law, Georgia can't start counting votes until 7 a.m. on Election Day.
We're going to see close margins, so it's going to take some time, and the voters need to understand this will take time for us to get it right.
There's not much time to resolve litigation around a series of new election administration rules recently approved by 3 of the 5 members on the state election board who openly support Trump.
Janice Johnson, Rick Jeffries, and Janelle King, 3 people, are all pit bulls.
On Tuesday, a Fulton County judge blocked one of their rules that would have required every polling place to hand count ballots to make sure it matches the number of ballots tallied by voting machines. The judge said the rule came too much too late, that there simply isn't enough time to staff and train poll workers necessary to hand count every ballot in the state. In 2020, there were almost 5 million. The judge also ruled local election officials cannot refuse to certify results. And in Virginia, election officials are being sued by the Department of Justice, accused of violating the National Voter Registration Act by attempting to purge people from voter rolls too close to the election. The law says state programs like that have to be completed before 90 days from a federal election. Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin defending his August executive order that set this in motion using DMV forms of people who identified as a non-citizen.
Because that person has in fact self-identified as a non-citizen, this is not subject to the 90-day blackout period in my view and in counsel's advice.
The DOJ asking a judge to order that registration of eligible voters impacted by this be restored and for local officials and poll workers to be trained to address confusion about the matter. In Washington, I'm Atrell Nashar reporting.
Well, during that story, we had a QR code posted on the screen asking the question, when will you vote? And 453 people voting in this poll about voting, and 65.3% say they will participate in early voting. 28% said on election day. 6.6% say they're not going to vote.
Well, just ahead, the start of early voting got kicked off today. We'll tell you how many folks here in Nashville cast their ballots today, plus an election day prediction from Tennessee U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty.
I'm Janae Bowens with a look at how Americans can navigate anxiety, stress, and fear caused by the election.
Early voting kicked off today in Tennessee, and Fox 17 News caught a steady line of people waiting to cast their ballots at the Green Hills Library.
Always good to see folks in line, especially for this. Now, early voting runs till the end of the month. We spoke with one voter today who is rooting for Tennesseans to get out there and set some early voting records.
Yesterday, by 2 p.m., Georgia had already surpassed their first day of early voting record. So I think Tennessee can take on our neighbor to the south. Let's go, Tennessee. If Vandy can beat Bama, anything is possible.
Hey, she's right. Love the enthusiasm. Nashville election leaders tell us that at the end of the day, just under 14,000 people had cast their ballots early on the first day. That's roughly 1,000 more people than voted on day one of early voting back in 2020.
Well, there's a lot of hype leading up to the election and a lot on the line.
Fox 17 News' Johnny Maffey talking with U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty about the race for the White House.
Senator Bill Hagerty said there will be a lot of changes if former President Trump retakes the White House, but that's up to voters. We asked him about a few other issues too, not just about Election Day itself, but leading up to it, as a lot more Americans are going to TikTok and social media for their news. He says social media can be a, quote, great tool, but also a great weapon. He's concerned about artificial intelligence and deepfakes, also foreign influence as well. We also asked Hagerty what if his candidate comes up short.
If the Harris ticket wins, how will you sort of move and try to work with them and work across the aisle to improve the lives of?
I think there's a good likelihood that we will win the United States Senate, that Republicans will be in control of the United States Senate, which means we'll be in control of the appointments process. We can immediately push back on some of these radical appointees that the Biden administration has put into office.
So we're under 3 weeks out from Election Day. Early voting started up in a lot of places this week as well. And if you want to see more of my conversation with the senator, you can head right over to our YouTube page at Fox Nashville. Outside the Capitol, Johnny Maffey, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
In politics on the campaign trail today, Vice President Harris back in Pennsylvania, one of the key battleground states in the presidential race. She talked about former President Trump's remarks to women in a Fox town hall yesterday, in which he referred to himself as the father of IVF.
If what he meant is taking responsibility, well, then yeah, he should take responsibility for the fact that 1 in 3 women in America lives in a Trump abortion ban state.
The Marist poll of likely voters just out today shows that Vice President Kamala Harris is leading Mr. Trump by 5 points. Now, that's up slightly from the last Marist poll a couple of weeks back. Most of the pollsters, though, say this race is just too close to call.
As election cycles are growing longer, the stakes seemingly higher, and political violence also rising. Some Americans say it is just too stressful. Fox 17 News' Janae Bowens with tips on keeping a cool head in the final weeks leading up to Election Day.
Dina Bass-Williams is over it.
I'm just ready for this election to be over.
She's not alone. 61% of Americans say the presidential election hurts their mental health. Licensed psychologist Dr. Tiffany Monford says every once in a while, people have to disconnect from politics.
If they don't turn out the way we want them to, how am I going to manage it? And then also identifying over what do I have control.
To cope with election anxiety, 21% of Americans are avoiding family and friends with differing views. Williams says that's the wrong approach.
If I'm only talking to people who share my political worldview, then I really am missing half of the conversation. And there may be things that I don't know.
Alexander Hefner, civility advocate and host of Breaking Bread, agrees.
I interviewed governors and senators from all these disparate places. And what I found was that we do have the capacity to have that human exchange if only we're intentional about it.
But to avoid stress and civil discourse,
are there things that we both believe that we can start with? And those may be the places that we start. We also want to make sure that the goal is not to be threatening of the other person. The goal is also to say, making sure, am I actually listening to what this other person is telling me? Also, you may want to identify what are issues that with this particular person are too volatile for me to touch.
You can be opponents without being enemies.
Some would say the silver lining is that 42% of Americans feel they can comfortably share their political opinions about the election with friends. I'm Janae Bowens reporting.
If you happen to be out this evening, chilly, yes, but you look up and it was a beautiful full moon. That was up in the sky. Might have appeared a little bit bigger. That's because we do have a supermoon on our hands. It will be officially full early tomorrow morning at 6:26, and it is the full hunter moon of October. But it is in a string of supermoons. This is the third of 4 consecutive supermoons. It is the biggest and it is the brightest of the year by a small margin, but still number 1. So again, if it did look extra large tonight, again, the reason why is because it is closest to Earth within its orbit, and it just happens to line up with the moon being full. So that's why it is called a supermoon. Temperatures for tomorrow look to be in those mid to upper 60s. Sunshine the story. We'll talk more about our dry weather pattern coming up in your Fox 17 Code Red forecast. Scott?
Katie, thank you. Also coming up, bracing for the Buffalo Bills, how the Titans quarterback Will Levis is staying positive after another close loss. In sports, the Titans looking to bounce back on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. To do that, though, the offense is going to have to play better, including quarterback Will Levis.
Well, Levis is near the bottom of the league in passing yards this season and leads the NFL with 7 interceptions. Fox 17 Sports Director Jill Jelnick has more on where his confidence is going into Buffalo.
Tennessee Titans got right back to work this week and held their first practice ahead of their game against the Buffalo Bills. As quarterback Will Levis took to the podium for his weekly press conference, I asked him, where is his confidence level at this point in the season? And he said without any hesitation, it's high. He said he made the mistake 2 weeks ago, getting low following his injury in their Monday Night Football game against the Dolphins. He said he won't make that mistake again. He has to play with an edge, and that's exactly what he intends to bring on Sunday against the Bills.
I found myself in a tough spot after the Miami game, just dealing with the injury and all that. And I was disappointed how I let myself dip for that brief period of time. But I feel like I'm back, and I'm not going to let myself lose that again. I think the second you lose that edge, it's hard to come back from. And you got to just maintain that to go out there and have the confidence and mindset to just do what you're capable of. So that's what I'm making sure that I remind myself every day, regardless of what my box score or stat line looks like, that I know who I am at the end of the day. Numbers or whatever else, whoever anyone says has to say, doesn't define me.
You deal with ups and downs. You can't allow your confidence to get shaken. You have to be resilient. You're going to face criticism as a quarterback in the NFL. You're going to have bad games, and you're going to have things that don't go your way. And how you handle those things largely defines, how you're able to bounce back from them. And that part of it for Will is a little bit new for him, being the starting quarterback from the get-go and having an idea of what he hoped it would look like and what the reality of it is now. And you have to find a way to fight through that.
One of the questions when it comes to the Titans offense is the connection between wide receiver Calvin Ridley and quarterback Will Levis, especially with Ridley having 0 receptions in Sunday's game against the Colts. We asked head coach Brian Callahan about it. He said he had a conversation with Ridley the very next day. He says there's no doubt about it. We have to get him the ball more. He understands his frustration, and they got to improve that connection right away. Reporting from the Titans practice facility, Jill Jelnick, Fox 17 Sports, your Code Red station.
Just ahead, a story of survival, how one local woman beat cancer and how you can help to raise awareness.
And staying safe, Tennessee sits on a major fault line, how you can prepare for an earthquake.
And coming up, we'll talk more about the tropics, still monitoring an area in the Atlantic, where it is now in your Fox 17 Code Red forecast.
Looking ahead to tomorrow night is Leukemia and Lymphoma Society's annual Light the Night Walk at the Nashville Sound Stadium. The event bringing the community together to celebrate, honor, and remember those touched by blood cancers.
Fox 17 News' Amanda Chen has one participant's story of survival.
Shannon Finley's life turned upside down when she was diagnosed with lymphoma in 2020. She underwent multiple lines of chemotherapy, but credits CAR T-cell therapy in 2022 with saving her life.
It was kind of my last hope, I think. I was never afraid.
30 days after receiving CAR T, her blood cancer stabilized and she was in remission a year later. CAR T-cell therapy is a one-time treatment to get immune cells to fight cancer by changing them in the lab so they can find and destroy cancer cells.
This is all doable. It's traumatic and it rocks your world, but you can be brave and strong and every day do this and not to lose hope.
Shannon now loves spending time with her 6 grandchildren, gardening and reading. She even fulfilled a long-time goal and assisted the University of Tennessee softball coach in 2022. She will be honored at Light the Night's Innovation Celebration, an opportunity for the CAR T-cell therapy community to celebrate survivorship and LLS's early research in this innovative treatment option. Reporting in Nashville, I'm Amanda Chen, Fox 17 News, your Code Red station.
Light the Night will start tomorrow night, 5:30, as we say, downtown in Germantown, First Horizon Park. Our Amanda Chen will be there and be serving as the MC.
Looking ahead, preparing for the worst. When you think of Tennessee, you don't typically think of earthquakes, but the volunteer state does have them. Joining us now is Steve Bessemer with the Central U.S. Earthquake Consortium. Steve, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Well, tomorrow is the Great Shakeout. It's a time to practice your earthquake drill. Why is something like that important for states like us here in Tennessee?
Well, in Tennessee, there is certainly the potential for earthquakes to happen, strong earthquakes to happen. The earthquakes are felt do occur in the Carolinas, which affects residents in the eastern Tennessee and in the western part of the state. We have the New Madrid seismic zone, which affects several states, including West Tennessee, and that has quite a history of having some of the largest earthquakes ever to occur in the continental United States.
So bringing up awareness here today, what would you tell Tennesseans? What should they do to prepare for what appears to be an uncommon event?
Yeah, we never know. There is definitely a chance that a damaging earthquake could occur at some point in our lifetime, so it's good to prepare now. We don't get the type of warning prior to earthquakes that we do in other events, such as tornadoes or hurricanes, or sometimes you have hours or even days to prepare for something like that. Earthquakes, you get really no warning at all. So you need to know what to do when that happens. You need to have those sort of plans made in your household. You need to know how to protect yourself when that earthquake does happen, and that's why this earthquake drill is important. It gives people an opportunity to practice, to drop, cover, and hold on when those earthquakes occurs, to protect themselves and to try to stay away from injury.
All right, and real quick, we're running out of time here, but what kind of things can you do to protect yourself?
Just drop, cover, and hold on are the basic things that we do in the earthquake drill. If you're in an area where you can drop down and kind of get down onto your knees, cover up, particularly the back of your head and the neck area there. And then if you have something to hold on to while the shaking is going on, hold on to that until the shaking stops. So you're going to be in a better situation to protect yourself when an earthquake does occur.
All right, the great shakeout tomorrow. Steve Bessemer, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I mentioned frost in the forecast for tomorrow morning. Out toward the plateau could easily end up with a light freeze, again meaning that temperatures will be at, if not a little below freezing for the morning hours. As we take a look at your exercise forecast here in town, I think we'll be in the upper 30s. What we may be dealing with, though, is a little bit of fog between 6, 7 and 8 o'clock in the morning. Patchy fog will be possible with the fog clearing as we head towards the late morning hours. As we take a look at our dry pattern, no rain since the 29th of September. So it has been a very dry several days and actually a few months. As we head towards the end of the month, I am not seeing a lot of rain. So we are going to be looking at a very dry pattern to continue. Tomorrow, the new drought monitor comes out, so this will likely worsen as we get the new one for tomorrow. You can see that most of Middle Tennessee in at least a level 1 drought, which is actually an improvement, by the way, from what we had with Helene before Helene. But notice to the south that we are looking at more of a drought in that extreme category, or level 4 out of 5. In some of our southern counties, I would expect some of this to worsen for tomorrow. So we'll have a look and see what the drought monitors come out with, given the fact that we just don't really have any rain anytime soon and haven't. This is a look at the percent of normal rain for the year. And basically what you want to take away is if you see any yellow or orange, that is below average. So as it stands right now, a lot of Middle Tennessee is behind on the average rainfall for the year up to this point, if that makes sense. A little above average for those along the Tennessee and Kentucky border. And of course, we're not looking to add any rain maybe for the rest of the month. So that is something that, again, we'll be keeping an eye on. As we take a look ahead, 6 to 10 days in the future here, our below average rainfall chances look to continue. So as I mentioned, the dry pattern will be the story for us. We are going to be looking at the drier weather to be with us for quite a while. Take a look at, again, the tropics here. I did mention we'd have a quick look at it. A 40% chance now in the next 7 days. It has come down slightly, but it is something that we will continue to monitor. If it were to develop, it would be our next named storm, Nadine. Here's a look at our 7-day forecast. Temperatures in those 70s, closer to 80 as we head into next week.
Breaking ground, the newest plans to come out of Nashville yards.
And a new treatment option for women who are battling cervical cancer, the promising results that doctors are seeing.
Take a look at this. We're getting a sneak peek of plans for the park at the new Nashville Yards development.
Pretty cool. The rendering show, some of the green space plans down there. There's going to be a place to meet your friends, pickleball courts, a dog park, and some other attractions. Nashville Yards is a 19-acre mixed-use development. It's under construction downtown Church Street near Broadway. It includes a hotel, a music venue, apartments, some restaurants, and shopping. The park will be known as the Ascension St. Thomas Landing at Nashville Yards, and hospital leaders say they plan to be involved beyond the naming rights.
In addition to naming it, they'll have some clinical capacity. They are thinking of this from a health and well-being of downtown residents, but also downtown workers right here on this site at Nashville Yards.
Nashville Yards is scheduled to open next year.
A life-saving new treatment promising to help patients. The hope for those battling cervical cancer.
There is some good news from the International Energy Agency. A new report says that lower energy prices are on the way. We're going to tell you what they say could contribute to that price drop. That's coming up Thursday on Fox 17 News this morning.
In health news tonight, researchers say it is the most significant development in the treatment of cervical cancer in more than 20 years.
In a clinical trial, patients receiving chemoradiotherapy lived at least 5 years longer than patients who received 2 other forms of chemo. The study is published in the journal The Lancet.